Townsend says that education and training is an avenue to economic equality. He does justify segregation, but he's accused of being too accommodating. (108) Chinese Exclusion Act prohibits Chinese immigration. They had been coming in large waves in order to work on the railroads. (109) Pendleton Civil Service Act establishes the Civil Service Commission, which the government is going to give jobs based on exam performance and not political patronage. Jobs based on exam performance, not political loyalty, patronage, voting. 110, the Haymarket Square riot. It's a May Day rally. Someone throws a bomb. 8 anarchists are arrested and found guilty, even though evidence is quite thin. 4 are executed. 1 committed suicide, and the other 3 are eventually released. It's a bit crazy. 111, the American Federation of Labor is created. It's founded by Samuel Gompers. They are the ones that really only allow skilled workers. For a long time, wanted a closed shop, which they could only hire people from the American Federation of Labor, no other unions, and no non-union people. (112) Dawes Severalty Act breaks up the Indian reservations and distributes land to individual households. The Indians were told they could buy their property, even though most of them didn't. And and the money was supposed to go towards civilizing the natives. No, not really. Told you, remember we mentioned that book, the lady writes about a century of dishonor, about how horrible people have treated the natives. Where am I? 113, Jane Addams founds Hull House. It's the most prominent settlement house. Provides aid to immigrants, such as housing, food, education, childcare, English lessons, cultural activities, social connections. You know, just a lot of aid for immigrants. (114) The Gospel of Wealth. That goes along with social Darwinism, natural selection, that poor people are poor for a reason. They're either stupid, lazy, being punished by God, something. They did something wrong, or they are unfit. 115, Jacob Riis publishes the book How the Other Half Lives. He's a reporter. He shows all the dirt, disease, rats, misery of the New York slums. Oh, 116, Sherman Antitrust Act forbids trusts and monopolies. It's the first attempt to regulate big business. time does the bus come? 4:10?
Yeah.
117, Wounded Knee Massacre. Several hundred Sioux Indians in South Dakota are killed by the U.S. Army. There's a dispute over a ghost dance that was outlawed by the U.S., as well as the Dawes Act splitting up the reservations that we just talked about on number 112. Yeah.
Oh, no, it's just
Review. 118, Ellis Island. It's the immigration interest point in New York Harbor. Everyone sees the Statue of Liberty as the welcoming point for immigrants. Immigration entrance point in New York Harbor. Most see the Statue of Liberty as a welcoming to the U.S.
Why did they outlaw ghost dance?
It was, the ghost dance was seen as vulgar and inappropriate, and just different.
Just kind of freaked out people, so they outlawed it.
119, Homestead Strike. It's at a Carnegie Steel plant. It's going to kind of fuel nationwide labor unrest, get support for the populace. Eventually there's an armed battle between the strikers and U.S. troops.
No, I'm sorry, you guys going by order or just by?
Order on the, yes, this part is in order. 120, Panic of 1893. 20% of the United States workers are unemployed. It lasts about 4 years. It's mostly caused by the federal deficit. There was withdrawal of British investments in American business. And the failure of the gold standard. $121, Pullman strike. Railroad car makers are upset about their wage cuts. This is where we get the emergence of Eugene Debs as a socialist. And President Cleveland is going to have to send troops in order to put down the strike. Their wages being cut. That's the one, if you think back to presentations, where they had like a little town that was made up of all Pullman workers, and they raised the rent and it had the cost of everything, but they cut their pay. So that doesn't really work out.
So they evict them? They don't live there?
But they have no money then. Oh, you can just
Oh, wasn't that the one where they like destroyed that mail card?
yes.
Okay.
122, Plessy versus Ferguson. We just talked about that. Establishes separate but equal. Election of 1896. McKinley is going to win. The populists nominate William Jennings Bryan for presidency. So do the Democrats. And William Jennings Bryan gives his famous Cross of Gold speech. You shall not crucify me on a cross of gold.
What was the speech called?
Cross of Gold. Populists in favor of silver. That's why in Wizard of Oz, the book, her magical shoes are silver. They're not ruby in the book.
Why did they? Oh, I remember that one. The technical.
124, Spanish-American War. Spain is trying to control Cuba. Sinking of the USS Battleship Maine. Remember the Maine, to hell with Spain.
I told them to put that on our shirt.
I cannot put to hell with Spain on a
What if we
t-shirt.
What if we put remember the pain? Dot, dot, dot. No one knows what that means.
Yeah, dot, 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 and you don't get the joke.
You can't get in trouble for that, and nobody will know what it means. But
They know our secret plan now, though, because
We are recording.
some
Yeah,
you can edit that out.
That takes too long. I
She
go
needs
home
to
and
do a
hit
lot
upload.
of editing.
Oh.
This is also where we get Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders. And the Delome letter was also during this time. 125, the open door policy is going to open free trade in China and gets rid of the spheres of influence.